I can speak mostly to, I guess, in the oil industry now, the monitoring they're having, especially around tailings ponds up north, with having wildlife technicians and biologists that are out there monitoring. And there's more, I guess, focus and attention on preventing problems that could potentially happen with wildlife. Whereas 20 years ago, I mean, it was kind of on the radar, but it was more of an afterthought, where now I'm seeing the shift where it's actually kind of built into any planning. That is actually part of the planning process. So that's been wonderful. Yeah. Yeah, we actually have seen that, and I even believe, you know, white nose syndrome could potentially be an indication of climate change. So we are seeing different patterns in wildlife disease. We're seeing different patterns in animal movement and migration. So typically, where we might be in an area that you know, didn't see an animal in the past, we're seeing those areas kind of expand. We're seeing birds that wouldn't be in a normal migration path kind of going off a little bit. We're seeing shifts in, and you know, this is all anecdotal. I don't, you need the research to back this up, but you know, I think we do see some things there that are kind of indicating that we see our seasons shift every year. So our seasons seem to be getting longer. Whereas before we kind of had a very definite, like, you know, spring is here this time and we're seeing these babies at this time and everything's going to be released at this time. And that's those boundaries are definitely getting moved a lot. So nothing is quite as consistent as we've seen. We're seeing babies emerge at different times of the year. That is not what has been expected in the past. So yeah, I think there's a few things that we're definitely seeing as indicators that are probably due to climate change. Yeah, yeah, we've got 9 species. Yep.
Yeah.
Off the top of my head, I probably couldn't give you a number, and that's changing all the time, like an exact number of what's endangered. But there's you know, just here in Alberta, obviously we have woodland caribou that are kind of at threat. We have burrowing owls, of course. The ferruginous hawk here in Alberta is threatened. And then, of course, most of the bat species, with the exemption of tree bats. I'm not sure where they're getting, I think they're going to be reclassified, but certainly all of the myota species here in Alberta are listed as endangered species now. And I've heard that they're talking about listing silver-haired bats, hoary bats, and red bats, which are all the migratory bats, that they're probably going to be listed as endangered as well. Yeah, that's just off the top of my head. Those are the big ones that come to me that are local to us. But yeah, there's some salamanders on that list, and yeah, lots of species. Oh, that's a great question. I mean, anybody can do anything. It's essentially, regardless of where you live, your surroundings really are an ecosystem. Even though it doesn't look like the picturesque of a forest or trees, there's an ecosystem right outside your door. And it's just really important to recognize that anything you can do to prevent, you know, if we're going to talk about injury specifically to animals and some of the impacts that you can directly have, is garbage is a big one. So just making sure that you're using reusable containers when you can. Perfect example, if you're buying a Slurpee or one of those, you know, fancy coffees that have those little domed lids on the top, making sure that you cut that before you throw that in the garbage, because they often can get stuck on an animal's neck. Same with the 6-pack rings, cutting that before you put it in the garbage. The facial masks that everybody's wearing, cutting those strings as well. All of that stuff, animals can get tangled with and can become a problem and cause injuries to them. And again, just educating yourself about your local environment and kind of what's around. Going back to the see a hair, leave it there kind of thing. If you do see an animal that's injured, or you think is injured or orphaned, just reaching out to a rehabilitation center first to make sure you know, those questions are asked before you intervene with anything. Those are kind of the big things, and just, you know, kind of keeping mind on what you're doing in your day-to-day activities and how that could impact you know, that's mostly really with just using what we use every day at our garbage. Yeah. I think it's relatively easy to get volunteers involved in the project. I will say it is a lot of hard work and it can be, you know, it's not always the typical videos you see on social media where you're like, oh, you've got the animal, it came in and you've released it and he's flying away beautifully. You know, you do see a lot of unfortunate injuries, and there's sometimes where the kindest thing we can do for an animal is to kind of put it out of its misery. So it comes with kind of, there's two sides of it. And so sometimes some people just, and not just volunteers, there's some staff that you kind of get exposed to that and it's not quite what they thought it was. So it comes with kind of the good and the bad. But overall, I think, yeah, we get a lot of volunteers that are really excited, and we have a very strong base of volunteers that are really dedicated and have been with us for quite a long time. Yeah, I would say, I mean, yeah, because my background is strong in the animal care side of things. So that is really rewarding to me when I'm actually able to, especially when you have a species, I mean, they're all important, but when you have a species at risk and you're able to get that back out there to kind of keep those genes in that pool, that's always really rewarding. And I think the education to me is really rewarding too, just to be able to reach out and talk to people and connect with people and get them to connect as well with their surroundings, and able to show them things that they didn't know that was there, and they're seeing it kind of with those first eyes and they're so excited, and that's really rewarding too. Yeah, I think that's a good question too. I mean, we can always do better. We can always do better. We're always looking at what we can improve on too. So I think you know, it's just super important, obviously, not just for humans, but or not just for animals, but for human health as well too, to look at the overall ecosystem and the impacts that's having, and what, you know, impact you could be having on water sources, and you know, even traditional hunting grounds and such, right, that could be impacted as well. So I think, again, I've seen a massive improvement, but there's always room for better improvement. And I think just constantly having that open mind and discussing and being open to knowledge of other people as well too that are involved in wildlife. So really kind of pulling in multiple groups and organizations to kind of discuss plans and ways that they all can work to kind of work together to improve this. So, you know, having natural resource companies even working or having a wildlife rehab person on their board that's able to respond fast if something does happen, and developing that or supporting that kind of thing, I think could go a long way, and maybe having quicker response and trying to preserve some of those species if an event does happen to occur. Oh, thank you. Yes. So we do have a website. It's www.calgarywildlife.org. And if you go to that website, there is a link on there that you can just click on, and you can make a donation through there if you are able to make a monetary donation. We also take donations in other ways as well too. So like I was mentioning with the volunteering, that is making a donation essentially to us too, because that helps us greatly. We also take like food donations. We take towels and sheet donations, kennels. There's all kinds of stuff. Any animal care products, basically, we can use as a donation. We can take straw donations, all kinds of stuff. Yeah. So like I had mentioned earlier, you kind of, because this field has evolved so much, so back in the day, you could probably just have a biology degree, or maybe not even that, it wasn't as regulated as it is now. Definitely the way that it is emerging now, and it's a good thing, is there's the veterinary medicine discipline aspect of it is really important to have as well. So I think it's super important to have the wildlife biology background. You still need that, but then also getting either a veterinary technician registration. So that involves, that's usually a 2-year program. It's a technologist program that I would do outside of your biology degree to get you that background in the medicine part, because we are practicing wildlife medicine, and as this field evolves and we're learning more and we're getting more and more involved, it is merging with domestic veterinary medicine now. At some point, so like we're taking x-rays, we're doing ultrasounds, we're doing surgeries and stuff, so it's really important to be able to have that background as well. And I foresee eventually, I think you're not going to be able to do wildlife rehab unless you have both.
Fantastic. Well, that is good to know. If I ever decide to switch my career path from finance to wildlife conservation, I will have to get that certification. But anyways, Melanie, that's all the questions we have. But again, we really appreciate you coming in and sharing your vast knowledge, which is very impressive to me. And I'm sure we're very glad to have had you come in and share your expertise in this field. So I hope you had a good time answering our questions. And I hope that everyone watching will be able to learn something from this. So yeah, in closing, if there's anything you wanted to plug, again, like your website, or if you have social media or anything, feel free to do so. We've got a couple of minutes left. So.
Okay, well, wonderful. Thank you so much. Yeah, I had a wonderful time. This was really fun, and I'm glad that you guys invited me and gave me this opportunity to kind of discuss what we do, because like Lily said, we do a lot that a lot of people I don't think realize what we actually touch on. So yeah, and again, the website, if anybody's interested in volunteering or just looking into more of what we do, is www.calgarywildlife.org. We also have a Facebook page, we have a TikTok page, and we have an Instagram page as well. So if anybody wants to check us out, please do.
Good to know. Lots of good social media there. Thank you very much, Melanie, for coming in. And once again, thank you, everybody who was able to join. This has been YCR's Food for Thought on March 2nd, 2023. Thank you all for joining, and I guess we'll see you next time.